caring for children has always been one of the deepest and most satisfying things a human being can do. The world is changing, and there's never been a more important time for childcare business owners to start marketing their businesses. In this podcast, we're going to be talking about everything that can help you grow your childcare business and stand out in a crowded market. Welcome to the Childcare Business Growth Podcast. Hey everyone, it's Nick here from Childcare Business Growth, and I'm super excited today to be joined by the amazing Sophie Jewry. Now, let me tell you how I came across this amazing lady, because a few years ago, 4 years ago, I believe, my wife and I was struggling to find a diary, what at the time I was referring to as a diary. And I was looking for a diary, something where I could plan out my day-to-day. What we're going to do, how could we organize the different businesses that we had and everything we had to do in a day. And I came across a website that had this plan on, okay? The Ultimate Diary Planner. And this is my wife's and I's now. This is what we have, the both of them. And I was a bit concerned this year. I was trying to find them. We always look to get them in October. And I went online trying to find these planners, and I couldn't find them for some reason. I had the wrong link. Totally my fault. Anyway, I contacted Sophie, and Sophie kindly pointed me where they were. But then I dug a bit deeper and started finding out a little bit more about what Sophie does. And, you've got 3 amazing businesses now, and I won't do it anywhere near enough justice. So I thought it would be really useful to get Sophie on, because let's face this, as a childcare business owner, one of the most difficult things we struggle with on a day-to-day basis, we have all these big grand plans of what we want to do, things we want to achieve, and then we get into the childcare business, and then a parent rings, or a team member needs us, or someone phones in sick, and everything else happens, and all those big grand plans go out the window. So I thought it was a perfect time to bring on the expert in this area, and I won't do it anywhere near enough justice. So I thought I'd ask Sophie to give a quick introduction to explain more about her role, her background, and the success that she has. So Sophie, thank you so much for joining me. Do you mind just telling everyone a little bit about you and your background, if you don't mind?
Yeah, sure. So I have been doing branding, design, marketing, print since 2003. Started out then and have worked for many different sized businesses all over the world, doing bits and pieces to help them with their marketing. And then along the way, I've dabbled in a few little things. So I've run a few online directories and worked on magazines and done all sorts of bits and pieces. And then in 2015, I'd done quite a lot of personal development work, particularly from 2011 when I did my NLP practitioner training, and you dive down the rabbit hole that is personal development. And I was looking at different ways that I could manage my time better and get stuff done, because I also had a daughter at that point. So back then she was like 11. So you were doing the school run, juggle and all of the usual stuff. And I kind of had a few ideas of things I wanted to do, and I'd tried a few different things, but I couldn't find anything that fit just right. So I thought, wow, I'm a designer. That's the joy, as I can just design my own that will work for me. So then I designed a planner and said, anybody want one? And I had like 100 people say, yeah, I'd like one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that was how the Ultimate Diary Planner started. And then it's grown from there. And we've now got the format just right for those of us that are, avid users. We've now got it. We haven't changed a lot for the last few years, but the first 3 or 4 years, there were lots of little tweaks and changes here to try and make the best that we could do to allow enough structure, but also enough space that people could make it their own, but also have, that thing that they know, a format that they know to work with. So that's led to me doing diaries and journals for other people, bespoke package journal things, and then also running what is called the Productivity Tribe, which is a membership based all around accountability, support, motivation, and planning and time management. So that's been going for a couple of years now. I'm very much immersed in the whole planning, productivity, time management, planners, journals world.
And it's a big thing as well, isn't it? As a business owner, in any business, when you are the owner, to have that accountability, it's difficult. You don't want to take those issues home. You don't want to take those, you don't want to be talking about work all the time. So I think that's a great thing you've talked about there, accountability, particularly for any business owner. is vitally important. So now I know there's a lot of topics we could go into today, particularly your expertise around brand and brand development, which I'm sure people would love you to talk about in detail. Hopefully we can do another session around that. But today we want to talk about, since we're right at the start of the year, let's face this, the last 9 months has been pretty tough for a lot of business owners out there. And I know that we all have these big plans at the start of the year, but then the day-to-day kicks in and everything else has to happen that we have to manage. So I wanted you to share, if you don't mind today, tips or steps that we can help to, plan out the perfect week, but also avoid that overwhelm. So have you got any things that we could share with our audience that would help them to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to teach people to suck eggs. That's not why we're here. And everybody will have their own way to plan. And also bearing in mind things like, some of the stuff that I'll talk about might seem very neurotypical. And if you're a little bit neurodiverse, then you might need to tweak them slightly to work for you. But generally speaking, the kind of the 5 things in order that I tell people to do, which does work for the majority of people, is one is to kind of brainstorm it out, get everything down on paper, and try not to get sucked into the overwhelm of, oh my God, there's so much stuff there, and overthinking it. And also sometimes people struggle actually with this step because they're like, as soon as you get a pen out and you get your paper, suddenly your brain goes completely blank. But I encourage them to work with it, just kind of write a few things down and then it starts to kind of flow from there. And make it work for you, because not everybody's brainstorms are the same. You can mind map it, you can do it in an Excel spreadsheet, you can do it in a Trello board, you can do it wherever works for you, so that you can organize that information. Because the point of doing it is that we can have a clearer view. So the whole sort of I can't see the wood for the trees thing is because we're just completely immersed in this stuff. And that's why when you get someone who's outside of it, they can come in and go, well, surely that's the most important thing that you need to be doing. But when you're in it, you're like drowning.
Oh, yes.
In important things. There's a few different techniques for this. There's different matrices and stuff that you can use to plan out what's important, what's urgent, what's important and urgent, what's urgent but not important, all of these different things. But the basics are get the information down and then do 3 things. You want to start with what can you actually get rid of? Okay. And that doesn't necessarily mean get rid of completely, but it could mean just pop in your notebook in the back of your diary, wherever, somewhere where you can, it's there, but you don't need to be thinking about it right now. It's like, it doesn't matter if it happens in a year, in 3 months, whatever it is, it's not important for me right now. So you delete from the list first. Okay. Then what can you delegate? What absolutely do you have to do? What could you actually give to somebody else? Even if you don't quite know how you're going to manage it yet, if it's something that could potentially be delegated to somebody, then that wants to go in the delegate list. And then we figure out what that looks like and how we work that out after then. And then you should be left with a much smaller list of the things that absolutely categorically have to be done by you. And then when we obviously look at that list, there's probably still going to be quite a few things on it
to do. Yeah.
So then we need to prioritize, and it's something that I think a lot of us struggle with, is everything feels important, and how are we going to prioritize that? But I think if you have big lists, you just get stuck in procrastination and you get stuck in overwhelm and everything. I know that if I haven't prioritized the top kind of 1 to 3 things that I have to get done, and you'll find me with my lists and then a post-it note. And the post-it note is, this is what I have to do. Ignore everything else. Do the post-it note. And if I've done that, then go and look at my list again and see what else needs to be done next. Because, otherwise you just get it. You tend to, I certainly do. You go to your emails, you check if there's any new emails. You go to your social, you check if there's any new social. You ask whoever you're talking to if they've got something, and you go back and forward in this circle of stuff. And then an hour later, you've actually not done anything at all. And then you're feeling more stressed.
It's a good point, because let's face it, if you're in an office-based business, or, in a business where you can control your environment, etc., it becomes a little bit easier, but you are right. You do get involved in those day-to-day things. One of the things I think that childcare business owners, and I know you definitely struggle with this, is you walk in some days and there's so much coming at you that, you know, a member of the team's called in sick, or, you know, a parent's called in, there's an issue you need to deal with, or something like that. And it's like you say, you've got all of that to contend with. Plus, on top of that, then you need to do emails, you need to deal with meetings, etc. you go along to. So how do we, you know, you've got that list. How do you make sure things are realistic to achieve them? Any tips that we can give people around that side?
I think it's important to remember that these things will always be there, no matter what your business is. And the more people you have in your environment, the more likely that there are things to come up. The less you install your boundaries and you communicate your boundaries, the more people are going to come and disrupt you. It's just a fact of life. So planning in, like allowing space in your diary, is massively important. And I think realistically, if you looked at how much time you physically literally get to do actual good work, it's very small amount of time in a day. One of the tasks I have had my tribers do is to track their time for a week. And I mean every minute of the day, if possible, because only when you become completely aware of how you're using your time can you then figure out how best you need to spend your time. And it also helps you with boundaries, because often when it comes to other people, it's really easy to think that what they're saying is important, but it's really actually important to know yourself what's important for you. And not to get sucked into other people's drama, because how many times have we had it where someone says, I need this and it's incredibly urgent and it has to be done now, and you go, oh God, and you drop everything and you do the thing, and then you send it to them, and then they don't get back to you for a week, and you think, I could have not had any of that stress.
That's a very good point. And let's go back, if you don't mind, can we go back to the one where you said about outsourcing? Because I'm a big advocate of this. I'll be honest, maybe up till about 3 years ago, I wasn't. But now I'll always look at any scenario, and I'll always look at, how can I give this to someone else to allow me to focus on the number one priority that I should be working on? And as the business owner, let's face this, we should be always looking at, you know, growth, or, you know, process. How can we structure the business? How can we grow it? How can we improve it, etc.? But we get so caught up in those day-to-day things, and we feel that we must do that. How do you advise people to start to prioritize what they pass on to someone else or they outsource to someone else?
I would look, because one of the big problems with delegating is the initial step of the delegation. The first time you do it, it can feel like just a gargantuan task, because you've got to teach that person what to do, etc., etc. But prioritizing the ability to delegate is an important one, because, and I think with that, it's looking at what is so the way I tend to look at how to delegate stuff is this something that I actually have to do, which it could be that you need to be doing the invoicing because you want to keep on top of that, or is it that you could actually outsource that to somebody else, and instead of you actually physically sitting there and tapping away on the invoicing, could you make sure that you've created a systematic way that there's a list for someone to follow, and then all you have to do is just check that list at the end and make sure nothing's been missed, rather than actually the nitty-gritty of tapping in the numbers. That's a reasonable example. Same with bookkeeping and social and all of that sort of stuff. And the other one is batching those things as well, which I know is not necessarily prioritizing what you're outsourcing, but if you can figure out, if you can look at your list and you can think, right, how can I batch elements of this? And then create a schedule for that. So that could be emails. So one of the things I started doing a long time ago and try and do, and the days that I do are far more productive than the days that I don't, is to only check my email twice a day. So, and not first thing in the morning. And the other thing with that is to plan your most important 3 tasks of the day before. So the ideal situation, which I appreciate is not always easy, is that you look at your diary the day before, like at the end of the day, and you say, right, these are the 1 to 3 things that I absolutely must, really important to get done tomorrow. So then we carve out a time in the morning, which is categorically our time. Nobody's allowed to interrupt me in this time. This is my time, no matter what, unless the building is burning down. You don't speak to me during this piece of time, and you get those bits done, and then you can deal with the firefighting, the other stuff, but you've got the bits that need to be done.
This is a big one. I find that when I do calls with some of our clients, one of the big things people struggle with is they get constantly interrupted. We're on a call and we're going through their marketing, and then all of a sudden someone will come in and go, "Oh, this parent just called. Can you speak to them a minute?" And they take the call.
Yeah.
And I think, oh my gosh, no, just don't, make sure you have that time where you're totally uninterrupted. Don't let yourself get disturbed by those little things. And that, I remember someone else explained that to me. Unless the building is on fire, don't disturb this 90 minutes or this hour, however long that time period is, where I can make sure I get my things done without any interruption whatsoever.
Yeah.
Are there any barriers you come across to people? What are the common things people say to you why they can't do those things?
I think a lot of it's based around fear, isn't it? I think a lot of what we do is based around fear in terms of we won't get that thing done, or we'll let that person down, or they'll think we're not professional, or yada, yada, yada. There's lots of things, but a lot of it is based around fear in some sense.
Yes.
And I think it's same with many things. The only way through that fear is to experience it and then come out the other side and think, oh, actually, okay. I think COVID's been quite useful in that sense, in that there's a lot of people out there. I mean, all of us have had it. We've had some sort of trauma where something's happened and we've been forced to not be able to be at work for whether it be a few hours or a day or a week or whatever. And you realize at the end of that week that your business it's not crumbled, it's not fallen down, it has managed to keep going. And I had it when my dad died. It was a bit unexpected, although he'd had cancer. I wasn't expecting the call on that particular day, but because I had a call answering service already set up, I literally just I just turned my calls off and said to them, "Can you please just say there's been a bereavement and she's going to let me take a message. I'm going to email it. And she'll get back to you at some point in the next 2 weeks," is essentially what they said. Right. I had another designer on standby so that if I needed any work done for my important clients that needed the work done, couldn't wait. Yes. She was on standby to do that. And I just sent her an email. And I emailed a couple of my best clients and said, "Look, this has happened, just so you know." And then I walked away. I put autoresponders on and I walked away, and I didn't really come back into the office for 2 weeks. And everything kept going. Because also, if you're in that sort of situation, people understand that they want to help. So, but obviously I'm not encouraging people to have deaths and to have disasters to experience the space. But if you can put yourself in a situation without that and really look at it and think, if it was a disaster and I couldn't be in the office, what would need to happen for the business to keep going, yes, for the cogs to keep grinding? And that's a really good way of figuring out what you can delegate, and you'll be surprised it's more than you think. Yeah,
that's a good one. And one of the ones I was always told as well is to look at what is your time worth. What is your time worth in comparison to getting someone else in there? There's a book I'm reading right now around the entrepreneurial operating system. And it talks a lot about in there, everyone that's doing their role should be better at the role than you are. Yeah. And I think sometimes we feel that, we can't do that because no one's going to do it as well as I am. But often one of the biggest learning curves I ever had was when I brought those experts in, and they've excelled that part of the business to a whole nother level because that's what they specialize in. And, it's freed us up so much now to be able to say, right, my priority, this is what I'm good at. This is what I'm good at and what I love to do. And let me bring in people that are much better at those other elements away from what I do.
Yeah.
So that's a big fact. That's had a huge impact on our business. Okay, so what other steps have we got that people can do to implement to avoid overwhelm?
Okay, so brainstorm it, then the 3 Ds, delete, delegate, and do list.
Okay.
And then from that list, you create a smaller list. So you're creating little chunks, basically, that you can need to do. And then plan in your time and plan in some accountability, whatever that looks like for you. It could be a coach, it could be a friend, it could be an alarm on your phone, Pomodoro technique, do little time chunks, whatever it could be. Okay. And then batch and schedule as much as you can. And then, another important thing is to review and plan, because if you're not reviewing what you've been doing, And the like time tracking is one of them. If you track your time, you then at the end of the week look at your time and you think, oh wow, actually I'm totally wasting this particular piece of time. Or the flip side is you look at your time and you think, holy cow, I'm fitting so much in.
Yeah.
What do I need to get rid of because I'm stressed or overworked or whatever? So I'm obviously doing too much. And that's often the case for people. We'll write these huge great lists and we think that we can fit all of this stuff in a day, and it just doesn't happen. One of the things I get people to do is we do what's called, it's Pomodoro technique. We call it a blast day, but it's Pomodoro technique. Essentially, it's 15-minute chunks. So I set the timer for 15 minutes. And even if you just did it for an hour or a couple of hours, it's really insightful because realistically, you can only get like 1 to 3 things done in a 15-minute chunk. 15 minutes feels like ages. You think, oh, I could do loads. I can do 15 things in 15 minutes. But the reality is writing that email, writing that social media post and scheduling it, making the call, whatever it may be, even just going to the loo and grabbing a cup of tea, all of those things, just 15 minutes just goes. It's just gone. Unless you are writing at the speed of sound, realistically it goes very quickly. So that's anything where an exercise where you can have a little dose of reality is helpful, to help you realize what you can and can't do. And once you realize what you can and can't do, you can then plan more effectively. So then you avoid overwhelm because you're not constantly feeling bad about the fact that you're never on top of your to-do list and you're not getting things done.
That's a very good one. Do you mind me just touching on that, the time trial part? I remember I did this. A gentleman called Alex Hamosi told me to do it. And so Alex Sheffrin told me how to do this. And he said, I want you to do this 2 weeks, 2 weeks, non-stop, every 15 minutes, write down what you're doing. And we broke it down into categories, whether it was personal, business development, etc. It was all different categories. And it was so interesting. First of all, it was hard to do as a habit to write it down every 15 minutes. But you are so right that it makes you realize how much time gets wasted either on irrelevant things or on the flip side, as you mentioned, doing things where you're trying to do too much in a day. I think, oh my gosh, my time could be so better spent on, developing the business in one aspect rather than processing invoices or, responding to those inquiries, etc. So it's a very good point there. What have you found from clients that have gone through that analysis? Is it the fact of they realize that they're wasting time, or is it generally that one that comes out more on top? Or
well, both. You get gosh, I realize there's less time than I think. There's also, gosh, I'm actually wasting a phenomenal amount of time, and also I'm just massively over expecting just massive over expectation of what I can achieve in a day is the biggest one. Everybody I know thinks that they can do far more than they actually can in a day. One of the, obviously for people who you touched on, like responding to inquiries and stuff, that's a classic outsourcing or automating one. Is people feel like, oh, but it's going to be a bespoke thing, or I need to do that, or I need to be showing customer service, or this, that, and the other. There's ways of still managing that and maintaining that touch point without being the person that sits there and writes that email. Once you've done a few, within reason, actually just a copy and paste is all people need the majority of the time. And that saves a massive amount of time.
We do that. Every single inquiry that comes into our business, it's all automated. Every single one. Voicemails, text messages, email file, everything is automated. We've got artificial intelligence answering all sorts of stuff there, because you're right. If you can free yourself up from that, even though it's vitally important to the business, it is something that you can definitely have a system and a process in place to run, isn't it?
Yeah. Like you sent me a booking link. I got a booking link a few years ago because I just got so fed up of the table tennis. I was trying to think which book it was. I think it's Deep Work by Cal Newport, which is one of my favorite books. Okay. And he talks about answering emails. And one of the things is, when he's writing the email, and I try and do it, have I included everything I possibly can in this email, which means there's nothing for them to come back and ask me for. So even things like, let's get a date in the diary. If I find myself writing that, I then have to catch myself and go, no, how about this date and this time,
Yes.
or book a thing on this link, because it's about how can I just completely, that email is the end of that conversation as much as it possibly can be, so that then it's not this 10 email, conversation that just keeps going and going and going. You just want to nip it in the bud, pass it on to them, and then they'll come back as and when it's needed to be come back by.
Very good point. Yeah. Okay. What other tips have we got? There's one I want to go on to at the end, if you don't mind. I've got a big question for you. Yeah. But what other tips have we got that people can do to avoid that overwhelm? Are there any others we want to share?
I think I've written quite a few things down, in the sense that bring it back to the present. Allowing space is important. So when you're planning your day, make sure you allow, even to the point where if you said, right, I've got an hour is all I've got in a day to do the stuff that needs to be done, and then the rest of it's going to be distraction and tasks and the other bits and pieces that are just kind of the maintaining. If I've got a good chunk of an hour where I can actually get proper decent stuff done, that is not unrealistic. I think for most people.
Okay.
And bringing it back to the present. I think when we get in overwhelm, it's really easy just to feel like you get the pressure and you get all tense. So a few deep breaths, it's really straightforward, but it really does make a big difference. Literally just breathe in for a count of 10, hold for a count of 10, breathe out for a count of 10. Do that 3 times, and then you change your state and you just feel a little bit calmer to be able to look at your to-do list and think, right, what is the most important and urgent thing for me to get done now?
Very good. Yeah.
And then what do I need to do next? So maybe 2 things, 1 to 3 max. Anything past that, you're straight back into overwhelm again, because you're thinking about all the different things you've got to get done rather than that one thing that needs to be done.
I always say this to people in our team as well. Sometimes you'll have this where people say, I've got so much to do. And then they get to the end of the day, I don't feel like I've achieved anything. And my analogy, something similar to what you said there, I always say to them, look, just focus on the one, get the one done. Even if it gets to a point where you only feel you've got that one main thing done, by the end of the week, you've done 5. You've done 5 things that have driven yourself and the business forward. And you've got those points done. The big one I want to ask you, if you don't mind, is around how do you advise people? Let's say we're talking about the next 12 months, okay? Yeah. As a business owner, how do you plan out the things you're going to achieve for the next 12 months? And then how do you break that down into smaller steps?
So as in like the business goals, or just like marketing stuff?
No, generally the business goals of what you want to achieve in the business over the next 12 months, whether it's number of sales or the growth of the business. How do you plan out what you're going to achieve in the business over the next 12 months? And then how do you then break that down to reverse it so it's in bite-sized chunks to be achievable?
Well, we could talk for hours about goal setting. I've got my opinions around goal setting has changed a little bit over the years. I'm a big fan of goals. I think they're great, but I do think they're also a lot of people set massive goals and then they sort of set themselves up for failure in the process of doing that. So my opinion is to set lofty goals by all means, and then focus on what I need to be doing day to day in order to achieve that. So if it is sales, like increased profit, say, then I need to be focusing on the profit to start with rather than focusing on the turnover, because I can increase my profit without massively increasing my turnover in lots of cases. Because when you look at that, you start looking for different things of how can I just add a little bit on? How can I do a little bit of a margin? How can I upsell something? And what are my biggest profit earners? And how can I focus on selling more of those rather than the stuff that's just going to give me a little bit of an increased turnover? But then, milestones, yes, definitely. But say, for example, you want it to grow to add another 100 grand into the business. It's easy to say, yes, well, we'll do 25 grand every quarter and then break that down. You can you just have to do a calculation to get down to what you need per week. But then if you start slipping behind, you can get a bit panicky and a little bit worried and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But if you think of, right, what actions do I need to take to be more likely to achieve that 25 grand? You'd be like, right, well, I need more leads and I need to convert more leads and I need to be doing that on a consistent basis. So instead of focusing on, I want to achieve 25 grand, it's more, right, I need to be getting a consistent I don't know, 10 leads through the door on a Monday, I need to have at least 2 calls a day, Monday to Friday, and I need to be improving my conversion rate. So actually it becomes from a financial goal back into, I need to be doing 2 calls a day. Yes. And I also need to be nailing those calls. So in which case, if I'm not doing that, I need help to be able to convert those better.
That's a very good point. Yeah. There's one. Sorry, go on. Carry on. I'm sorry.
No, that's right. So it changes from just a big sort of goal and milestones down into daily actions, daily achievable small actions, and ideally the less the better. So that you can focus on getting those done, and then they are much more achievable.
This is why I totally agree with everything you're saying there. And one of the things I just wanted to add to that, if you don't mind, is so we do. So I've got a meeting tonight with my coach. So my coach is based in the US. I always have a coach. You talked about it earlier. The importance around that mentor, someone that's been there, someone that's experienced what you're going through or what you want to achieve. And this is a big one for me. I heard someone say in the last about 2 years ago, they said to me, I always move my coach. I don't stick with the same coach all the time. And when I realized why, that was so fundamental for me, because they said I go to the coach where I need to focus on that part. I need to find someone that's gone through what I'm going to go through in the next 12 months or what I want to achieve in the next 12 months. So I'm working with the coach right now around the things that I want to achieve with our business over the next 12 months. And, I found that coach. But more importantly, what he does there with us is, okay, the next 3 months, what are the rocks that we're going to achieve? So we look at those rocks and we set them out. What's the plan for the business for the next 3 months? But not only at my level, we then break it down into each department. So, for example, we break it down to the copywriters, the designers, the web developers, the back-end automations. Every single aspect of what we do then, we break it down into each department of the business so we know what they have to do to help us achieve that rock. Because ultimately, the rock isn't just on me, it's on everyone in the team. And again, the maximum we set for the quarter are 5 rocks. And one of them might be easily achievable within the first 2 weeks, but another one might take the whole quarter, for example. So I hope you didn't mind me adding that, but I think that was so valuable for us. And then off the back of that, what we now do, every one of our team, every Tuesday, we have a 20-minute call where we go through our KPIs for the week, our key performance indicators. Yeah. And I think as a childcare industry, I don't think as a business that I might be wrong, some businesses do it, but I don't think we have enough key performance metrics in place to be able to track, are our team on track to achieve what they should be doing, on a weekly basis. So it's a big area I think we all need to look at, is that it's not just the rocks are on us, they're on our team, on our departments, but then measuring those things as well.
Yeah, reviewing as part of the process is so important. That was like step 5, is the review and the plan, because in order to be able to plan for the next step, you need to review the last, because if you just go slightly off kilter, you end up in somewhere completely different to where you thought you were heading. And like you were saying, with allocating KPIs or particular tasks and actions to the people all the way down the team, whether they be in-house or outsourced, even to the point that with your social, right, we want to do a post a day, and the post a day might be going out, but if you don't review that month and say, right, did it do what we need it to do? What do we need it to do? What do we want our social to be doing? Is it for driving leads? Is it for creating community? Is it for nurturing relationships? Is it for whatever? If it's not fulfilling that, then that needs to be changed, because there's no point in having that unless it's performing. And again, with your time, review your week. If you look at how you've spent your time, you can then plan how you're going to spend your time the next week. You can figure out what boundaries you need to put in place, how you're best to communicate those boundaries, who needs to know those boundaries. Because if you're not setting boundaries, you're not implementing boundaries, and that's to yourself as well as to other people, and you're not reviewing the stuff, then you can plan till the cows come home, but you will probably be missing some really important things because you haven't been looking at what you have been doing to know whether it's working or not.
Yes, that's a very good point. Sophie, I want to say I could talk to you for hours on this. Honestly, there's so much you could go into. And guys, if you want to find out more about Sophie, okay, first of all, if anyone has a basic diary, okay, or you have any other plan, just go and take a look. I will post the link, okay, because this is mine, okay, and my wife has her own as well. So my wife's here with me in the office today, and we go through, we use this. It's literally our Bible.
She's got good taste. She's got
She
the
has,
same
yeah,
as
she
me.
definitely wanted that one. So I wanted more of a play, but I honestly, because I love this. I use it every single day. I'm one of these people that if I don't review what I've done in a day, I feel very deflated. I like to know, but I also like to plan my whole week out and review that week as well. So if you don't have one of these, make sure you go and get one, because I promise you, it literally will change how you run your business and your day-to-day life as well. And if anyone else wants to find out any more information about Sophie, I'm going to grab the link right now, and I'm going to post that in the comments for you all to make sure that you go and connect with Sophie. And Sophie, I cannot thank you enough for jumping on. I know you're extremely busy with everything you've got going, particularly this time of year with all the planning for your clients as well. And is there any other ways people can get in contact? So they've got the website. Is there any other workshops or things that you do to help people plan or, organize themselves better?
Yeah, so most of my links are through that. I'm on social. I've got a free planner going out at the moment, which is a little year planner. Actually, this is the wrong color I've picked up for some reason. But yeah, essentially it's a little printed one. I've got a thing for that going out at the moment. So that's on my social. Yeah, I'm on social. If you if you Google me, I'll come up in a variety of places. But generally speaking, yeah, I'm just chatting on social, and I'm on email and bits and pieces like that. I've got my productivity tribe, obviously, if anybody wants to jump in for that. But I'm sure you have got lots of things happening in your own little world, supporting little world in your own world. I have my little world is what I tend to say.
But we always can recommend more people, to the experts in those areas. I think it's vitally important to do so, particularly in the world that we're in right now with everything going on. We need that accountability. We need that support. We need that guidance from those experts in that area. So, Sophie, I want to thank you. I'm very, very grateful for you giving up your time to jump on today and sharing such amazing value. I've posted the link down below as well in the comments. Make sure you can connect with Sophie. And Sophie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. Thank you once again. I will speak to you. Hopefully we'll jump on another call soon and talk about branding as well. So thanks again, Sophie. See you soon.
We're on a mission to help business owners just like you to get more customers into their businesses and to help you stand out from your competition. If you'd like to find out more about the ways we can help your business, check out our website at childcarebusinessgrowth.com.